Events of the Viking Age from In the Blood. During most of the Viking Age, the kings and jarls, or earls, of the north reigned in glorified farmsteads, and the chief business of the courts, particularly through the long gloom of winter, centered upon nightly drinking bouts. Scandinavian royalty possessed a limitless capacity for mead, a beverage made of fermented honey. Howard LaFay. Their legacy lives on in the sagas and myths of the Eddas. Their customs continue in traditions such as feasting, the Yule tree, toasting, courts of appeal, wailing, and the belief in elves. Their gods are remembered in the days of the week: Tuesday for Tyr, Wednesday for Woden, Odin, Thursday for Thor, and Friday for Freya or Frigg. In their time they built kingdoms and earldoms from the Volga to the Thames. They discovered North America 500 years before Columbus. They often settled in the lands they conquered. One after another, they colonized groups of islands like the Orkneys, Shetlands, Faroes, Hebrides, Iceland, and Greenland. An Anglo-Saxon chronicle from 793 CE states, "The harrying of the heathen miserably destroyed God's church in Lindisfarne by raping and slaughter." This event marks the Vikings' explosive entry into recorded history. Never before has such a terror appeared in Britain, notes another contemporary chronicler. In the following centuries, similar groups targeted monks, looted sanctuaries, and plundered libraries and storehouses. Norwegians, Swedes, and Danes surged out of their frosty lands to conquer much of Europe. What they couldn't carry away, they burned. Throughout Europe, the faithful prayed, "E fura Normanorum libera nos Domine." From the fury of the Northmen, deliver us, O Lord. Those fierce marauders who went a Viking were not representative of all the Norse. To go Viking, a term that only recently has become to represent a people, meant to embark on voyages of piracy and pillage. However, many Norse in those days lived peaceful, humble, and productive lives. The following timeline below spans about 800 years and represents known events. However, much that occurred before the 6th century cannot be dated precisely, as their history was largely passed down through oral tradition. Circa 4th century, a warrior aristocracy rules Scandinavia. Fierce competition between small rulers begins to develop into centers of power. Boat building and navigation skills are well developed. The Norse pantheon of gods narrows to those still familiar today, including Odin, Thor, Loki, Freya, and Frey. King Svafarlami acquires a cursed sword from Dvalin and Durin, and thus begins the Tyrfing cycle. Circa 5th century, the Tyrfing cycle continues. Our Mythmaker adventure, In the Blood, is set mid-century. Circa 6th century, emergence of Vendel period, which lays the groundwork for later expansion, features distinctive art styles and boat designs, and the establishment of an assembly system called the Thing. 630. Expelled from his native Sweden, Olaf Totalia founds a colony in Vermeland, now Norway. 787. First invasion of Britain by Danes. 793. At the monastery of St. Cuthbert, on the island of Lindisfarne, off the east coast of England, a multitude of flaming dragons are seen flying above the migrating birds, taken as an omen of sorrow by the monks. The church is sacked 6 days later in the first of many raids along the English coast. 795. Northmen land in Ireland. 800. Northmen discover the Faroe Islands. 802. Vikings dominate Ireland. 834. Danes raid England. 837. War between the Danes and Wessex. Circa 840. Vikings raid Germany and France. 841. Northmen plunder Rouen on their way to Paris. 843. Rus Vikings attack Byzantium, Istanbul. 845. Northmen destroy Hamburg and penetrate Germany, raid Paris and Spanish towns. 851. Danes sack Canterbury Cathedral, rebuilt circa 950. Danish army winters in England. 859. Chieftains Bjorn and Hasting lead 62 ships from their base on the Loire on an epic voyage. They loot the Iberian coast, pausing at the Rock of Gibraltar to sack the neighboring city of Algeciras. They ravage southern France and the Spanish coast and winter in the Rhone River Delta. They despoil the city of Arles and Nîmes. In Italy, they attack Pisa. However, on the return they suffer defeat to the vengeful Moorish fleet. The few vessels that manage to escape hasten north. 40 ships are lost, but the survivors gain much wealth and glory. 861 through 864, Northmen raid Cologne, terrorize the Rhineland. Northmen discover Iceland. 862, Swedes begin trading in Russia. 866, Vikings take over York. 872, Norway. Harald Harfager crowns himself king. 872 to 930, Norwegians settle Orkneys and Shetlands. 878, King Alfred retakes London from the Danes and defeats them at Edington. 875 through 900, colonization of Iceland by the Danes. 885, Northmen besiege Paris. 893, Danes renew attacks on England and are defeated. Circa 10th century, a female Viking commander known as Inga Ruide, or Red Girl, so called for the color of her hair, leads a Viking fleet to Ireland. 911, Rollo, or Hrolf, granted land by the Frankish King Charles the Simple in return for leaving the rest of France alone. His terms also require Rollo to become a Christian and Charles' vassal. After 911, the north shores of France are defended by the Danish chieftain. 912, Rollo parcels out his fief among his followers. Their name, Nordmani, or Northmen, is given to their new homeland, Normandy. 934, Eric Bloodaxe, king of Norway. His cruelty sparks revolts. Circa 980 through 1100, Christianization of Iceland, Greenland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. 982, Viking raids occur in Portland, Dorset, and South Wales coasts. Greenland is discovered by Eric the Red. 986, Bjarne Herjolfsson sights the New World. Eric the Red settles Greenland. 988, Vikings attack Somerset and Devon. 994, Svein of Denmark and Olaf of Norway besiege London. 998, Danes attack the Isle of Wight. The year 1000 was busy. King Olaf I of Norway is killed in the Battle of Svolder, and Norway turns Danish. The heroic poem Beowulf is written. Leif Erikson, or Leif the Lucky, son of Eric the Red, discovers North America, Nova Scotia. Leif comes first to the mountains and glaciers, which he names Helluland, now Baffin Island. Then he sails south to put ashore on a sandy beach with the forest beyond, which he calls Markland, now Labrador. Further south he comes upon a land so choice it seems that none of the cattle would require fodder for the winter. They find salmon there in river and lake, bigger than they had ever seen before. Leif builds a house and winters there in what he calls Vinland, now the island of Newfoundland. Circa 10th century. I have never seen more perfect physiques than theirs, said Ahmed ibn Fadlan, an Arab soldier and diplomat from Baghdad. Every one of them carries an axe, a sword, and a dagger. 1066. The Normans defeat English at Hastings. The English defeat Norwegians at Stamford Bridge. The Viking world begins to shrink. Settlements in Greenland slide into decay. Seamanship declines. Greenlanders and Icelanders are left to their own resources.